Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Alright, and welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. Alright, last time we talked to you was Wednesday. Now we got a whole bunch of other stuff to talk to you about. Okay? Kawhi Leonard is finally playing for a different team. It's not the Lakers. It's not the Clippers. It's not the Celtics. It's not the Sixers. It is the Raptors. All right, about as random as it gets, but nonetheless, he's now playing for the Raptors. We're going to talk about that for the first segment. All right, second segment, we'll be talking about Jimmy Butler. Seems like he's going to be leaving Minnesota. He doesn't want to sign a long-term deal there. All right, third segment, we're going to talk about, obviously the Lakers were, I'm sure it seemed they were planning to go after Paul George and get LeBron. Paul George didn't happen. Then it seemed like Kawhi was going to be the move. Kawhi didn't happen. All right, where do the Lakers go forward from here? I'll give my thoughts on it all. And then for the fourth segment, we will be talking about anything else going on in the world of basketball. All right, so that's how today's show is going to go. And we've reached a point where, Kawhi was the biggest news as far as where he was going to end up. Okay. We were waiting on that. We've already seen where LeBron went. We've seen where DeMarcus Cousins went. Paul George ended up staying, and a bunch of other players went to different spots. Right, but Kawhi Leonard was the next domino to fall. And it fell hard. Okay. Now he's a Toronto Raptor, and this is a risky move for Toronto here. Okay. Toronto ended up giving San Antonio DeMar DeRozan and Jacob Poeltl, also a first-round pick, which I believe is lottery protected, for Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green. Okay. Toronto, this is obviously a win-now move, we want to win the finals this year move, but let me say this. All right. It is a panic move. Right now, I'd say that organization is panicking big time. Okay. So let me take you on a little bit of a journey here. All right. DeMar DeRozan, drafted by the Toronto Raptors. Toronto's basically pretty much that's their franchise player. Okay? Vince Carter was there. He ended up leaving Toronto. Tracy McGrady ended up leaving Toronto. Okay? No one has ever wanted to stick around in Toronto except for one man. Well, obviously, that man was DeMar DeRozan, like I said. Okay? Seemed like he was the chosen one for that team. All right? That was their player. That was going to be the guy who was going to spend the rest of his career there. And it seemed like he wanted to. And like I said, all right? Not too many players ever willingly go to the Raptors. And not too many players, even if they're drafted there, willingly spend the rest of their career there. Okay? DeMar DeRozan was different. All right, recently signed him to a long-term extension a couple years ago, I believe it was. And they ended up trading him. All right, they ended up keeping the guy who's currently 32 years old and hasn't even spent his entire career there. Okay, and I don't really have a problem with it. I like Kyle Lowry. But nonetheless, you got DeMar DeRozan who wasn't too happy about it. I think DeMar DeRozan realizing that the NBA is just a business and there's no such thing as loyalty here. All right, but nonetheless, the whole point about me thinking Toronto's panicking is, with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, you've made the playoffs year after year. Okay, you even had Dwayne Casey there, and he was pretty much helping them get better year after year. All right, Roy's a mainstay in the top four of the East, and the last few years have pretty much looked like one of the best regular season teams in the East. Okay? Only problem is, with each time they've made the playoffs, Kyle Lowry never really showed up, seemingly just basically forgot how to play basketball, and they've always struggled to go far in the playoffs. All right. Plus, there's that LeBron guy that's always played in the East, and he's always been the boogeyman for the Toronto Raptors. Okay? Doesn't matter what they did before, what they were doing at that time, LeBron was going to beat him, and you just had to pretty much accept it. Okay? So this past season, they end up becoming the 1 seed in the East. All right? Best regular season record in the East, and looking like the best team in the East. Okay? Look better than the Cavs. Look better than the Celtics. This was probably their most complete year. All right, role players looking good, doing well. Fred VanVleet looking like the perfect backup point guard. All right, OG Anunoby playing great defense, and the rest of that team doing a good job. They end up making the playoffs, like I say, and they end up beating the 8th seed Wizards in 6 games. Okay. Kyle Lowry played well. DeMar DeRozan kind of shaky, but nonetheless, you're just happy to see Kyle Lowry stepping up. All right. Cavs team ended up playing the Pacers in the first round. Cavs team ended up going 7 games with the Pacers, and I mean, you could tell that without LeBron, this team would have lost that series. And if LeBron wasn't playing out of this world, then they have no chance. Okay, LeBron literally won those 4 games for them in that series. So, we got the Raptors and Cavs meeting up in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Okay. Raptors looking like they're the favorites to win this series. I picked them in 6, and I think most others picked the Raptors to win this series. All right, people were assuming if there was ever a year for them to do it, it was definitely this year. Okay, Lowry's playing well. Raptors, best season they've had. This is it. All right. Game 1 comes, they lose. Game 2, you're thinking, all right, they'll get one back here. They lose. Game 3, they lose. And eventually, by the time Game 4 ends, you know it's over. They get swept. Okay. As good as that Raptors team was this season, all that work they put on in the regular season, winning all of those games, winning their first round matchup against the Wizards, came all for nothing. Okay, because they got swept by the Cavs. All right. And obviously, you're looking at this season thinking this was it. All right, what else did we need to do? Why is it always so difficult? We got swept this time. Okay. Fan pressure comes, front office is freaking out. What do? You fire Dwayne Casey. I think that was the wrong move to make. Okay? Ended up promoting Nick Nurse off the bench to become their head coach. And now Casey's over in Detroit, where they're looking like they could be a playoff team. Okay? We could have a Pistons Raptors playoff series in the first round next season. This upcoming season. Alright. So you figure, alright, there's that. I mean, now they're going to try going forward with the team they got. I figured that the problem with the Raptors was they were trying to win with a team built around DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. Okay, I think those are second-tier players. As good as they are, they're not going to get you far in the playoffs because they're just not players you build around. Same thing with Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony was never going to get you far because he's just not a player you build around. Okay? You just add him there. You just add him to whoever next to your franchise piece. Okay, and I figure, like I said, you got to bring in someone better. All right, they got to be the 2 pieces that you add. Nonetheless, the Raptors feel differently. They end up trading DeMar DeRozan. So, in one offseason, you get rid of your best player and you fire a head coach who improved your team every year. Okay? You trade your best player for a guy who more than likely will not be playing with you after this season. That is where the panic move sets in. Okay, I think the Raptors are so bent on winning that they feel they got to do whatever they can to win in this one season when not thinking long term. Okay? And I mean, they could have a plan B, but as far as I know, they don't. Alright? Kyle Lowry right now is 32. His best years are behind him. There's no getting better once you hit 30. Okay, whatever player Kyle Lowry is now is what he's going to be this season. After that, his play could start to diminish. Okay? Kawhi Leonard has turned into a diva right before our eyes. Kawhi Leonard, it seems, wants to go where Kawhi Leonard wants to go. If Toronto is not where Kawhi wants to be, then he's going to leave. Okay? And if he leaves, then Toronto's really got to go out and draft extremely well. Otherwise, they are going to be terrible. All right? Because as good as they are, you still need superstars on your team, and they won't have that after Kawhi. Okay? So does this move make them better than the Celtics? I don't think so. Okay? I mean, the Celtics are adding Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward to a team who went to the Eastern Conference Finals, went to Game 7, all right, against the best player in the world, with a rookie leading them that way. Okay? It's not necessarily a great situation. I'd say right now, the Raptors are on par with the Sixers. Okay? But like I said, I mean, this is a panic move by the Raptors. They feel the need to win right now. They feel like they have no choice. Okay, so it's going to be real interesting to see what this team looks like with Kawhi. And I mean, there's been rumbling about him not playing this season with the Raptors. He'd be losing out on $20 million, and I think he wouldn't be able to become a free agent. The only way he could go to a different team is if the Raptors pretty much gave him permission to go negotiate somewhere else. All right, so the whole report about Kawhi not playing this season is either got to be incredibly false or Kawhi's got to be incredibly dumb. We just got to wait and see, I guess. But I really don't see him sitting out the season with the Raptors. All right. So now the Spurs with DeMar DeRozan, I mean, I think that they have a team good enough to make the playoffs. Whether or not they will remains to be seen, but I do think that DeMar DeRozan most likely will have his best season under Greg Popovich. All right. So we'll see how it all plays out, but nonetheless, the NBA offseason, like I said, there's nothing better. But we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about Jimmy Butler, so stay tuned and I'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Spent that first segment talking about Kawhi Leonard going to the Raptors. All right, I mean, I've been saying all along if he was going to go to a team, it would have to be a random team. I think Toronto's about as random as it gets. Okay, Toronto's the only team who was willing to part ways with an all-star type player. That being DeMar DeRozan. So obviously there was a deal to be made here for the Spurs. The Spurs they get worse, but they're not, I don't know, they're not terrible or anything like that. They're still a team who can make the playoffs this season. It's just a matter of can Pop get this team on the right track. Okay. But nonetheless, I mean, now going forward, we're going to see what the Raptors are going to look like with Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it's a bit of a puzzling move if Kawhi Leonard's not there for more than one season. Okay, if he's just there for this season and ends up leaving, then this was an all-time terrible move by the Raptors. A move that basically sets their franchise back, and a move where it could have been avoided. It's a panic move. Okay, that's what that is. It's panic. All right. So maybe they think that, I mean, with Kawhi, they can win the title. And if they do that, I think maybe they're assuming that if they win the title, Kawhi will want to stay long term. But I just don't think. I mean, Kawhi's won a title with the Spurs and didn't even want to be there for the rest of his career. So I'm not sure how much I buy into that if that is their plan. But I mean, they do have to have some type of backup plan or something like that. Is this just it? All right. You're basically bringing on a guy who's a 1-year rental, and you have no backup plan. I mean, who knows? All right. So we'll see, but nonetheless, I mean, you got a team over in Minnesota who's trying to figure out their future with one of their star players, and that's Jimmy Butler. All right. Minnesota offered Jimmy Butler a 4-year, $100 million extension. He pretty much turned that down. Okay. And, I mean, there's the point where Kyrie Irving said he wouldn't sign an extension with Boston this season because of the fact that there was more money to be made next season. That could be a point with what's going on with Jimmy Butler and the Minnesota Timberwolves here, but I also do think it's a point where, I mean, obviously we've had talks and reports about how Jimmy Butler isn't relatively too happy about playing in Minnesota due to the fact that Towns and Wiggins don't take the game as seriously as he does, and I said that it's it's been more so Towns is the one as reported than Wiggins. Okay. And I mean, it's a point where the Timberwolves can't afford to be without Jimmy Butler. Okay, we saw last season, it was night and day compared to the years where it was just Towns and Wiggins leading that team. All right. Butler's got him as a 3 seed. He ends up getting hurt, misses the last 2 months of the season basically, and they barely even make the playoffs. Okay. Jimmy Butler is a difference maker. I do think that Jimmy Butler is a first-tier superstar. I think Jimmy Butler is a guy you could build a team around. Okay? I think he's that good. And there's a point with Minnesota, I mean, you're just barely getting good. Okay? You've been terrible since that Kevin Garnett trade. All right? Since then, nothing has worked. Now you finally got some players, and I don't really think you can afford to lose a guy like Jimmy Butler. But there's a point where there's very few players in this league like Jimmy Butler, meaning all these other guys are basically individuals who I don't think basketball is life or death for them anymore. I think they see basketball as a job and they have other interests. Jimmy Butler is one of the few where basketball is life and death, I think. All right? I think Jimmy Butler is basically trying to go to a place where it's like San Antonio or Boston, where you just preach basketball and you just play basketball and the goal is to win a championship. Okay, I think that's what Jimmy Butler's got to be looking for, and I don't think that's what you can get in Minnesota. That's not even what you can get over with the Lakers. Okay? Over in San Antonio, there's no outside distraction. All right, of course, besides Kawhi Leonard, but nonetheless, that came from within. And that seemed like it was more so Kawhi Leonard's fault than it was the Spurs. Okay? Like over in Boston, where basically they're all superstars and all, but nonetheless, they know what the end goal is. Okay? Spots like Golden State. Their goal, to win a title. Nothing else. Okay? You don't let that outside noise never affect Golden State. They're such a close, tight-knit group. So I think Jimmy Butler's probably going to end up somewhere like there. I mean, I wouldn't sleep on the fact of Jimmy Butler going to the Spurs next season. Okay? He's got to go somewhere where either the culture, like you need a player like him to change the culture, or the culture's already set up where a player like him is going to fit in. Okay? I don't really think he's a fit over with the Lakers. I don't think he's really a fit in Minnesota if this is exactly what he's looking for. Okay? And if I'm Minnesota, I mean, as good as Towns is, I just don't think he's a guy who can lead a team going far. All right? Of course, he's still an extremely young player. All right? Let me see. How currently is Karl Anthony Towns? Let me see. Karl Anthony Towns, I feel like he's been in the league for a while, but nonetheless, I mean, these one-and-done kids are still extremely young coming into the league. So right now, he's only 22, Towns. All right? He's been in the league since 2015. All right? So last year was his third year. His first season, they averaged 18 points a game, 10.5 rebounds, all right, and a block. 2016, he averaged 25, 12 rebounds, nearly 3 assists, and a block. Then this past season, he averaged 21 points, all right, 2.5 assists, 12 rebounds, and 1 block. All right, so his numbers have relatively been pretty consistent over his first 3 years. And it's a point where, I mean, do you need Jimmy Butler if you're the Timberwolves? Yeah. All right. But there's a point. If they're not going to mesh together and play well together, then there's no point in bringing them back. And like I said, I don't think Jimmy Butler's going to be coming back to the Timberwolves next season. Okay, if these reports about him being unhappy with the other players' work ethic are true. All right, I don't think Jimmy Butler's really in the situation where he can be wasting his time going forward in his career. All right, and let's take a look at Jimmy Butler's career so far. Okay, because he was basically the guy who was picked to take over the Bulls instead of Derrick Rose. All right, the Bulls did make the right decision at the time. Of course, they didn't really get to follow through with it since they ended up losing trading Jimmy Butler. But nonetheless, Butler's been in the league since 2011. His first season, though, he only played 42 games. Didn't start any of them. All right, averaged 2 points a game. 2013, he starts 20 games, plays in 82, averages 8 points a game. Let's see, 4 rebounds and an assist. 2013, he starts 67 games, plays in 67 games, averages 13 points a game, 2 steals, nearly 2.5 assists, and 5 rebounds. Okay, 2014, he starts and plays 65 games, averages 20 points a game there, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Okay, 2015. In 2014 was the first year he made the All-Star team too. 2015, starts and plays 67 games, 21 points per game. All right, a steal, averages 5 assists and 5 rebounds. 2016, All-Star team once again, 24 points per game, 6 rebounds, nearly 6 assists, and 2 steals. All right, and then this past season, 2017 with Minnesota, ends up getting hurt, misses about a month and a half to end the season. All right, was averaging 22 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists there, and 2 steals. Okay, been relatively consistent over his career. And let's see, he's currently, how old is he in age? Let me see, he's got to be, I'm assuming, because I don't think he was a guy who really was a one-and-done type player or anything like that. So let me figure it out real quick. He's got to be at least 20. I'm assuming he's 28 as of right now. All right, but nonetheless, let's see his current age. Jimmy Butler, he is 28. All right, turns 29 in September, so he doesn't have much time to waste. It's going to be the last probably big contract he gets, and this next upcoming contract is probably going to be the best chance he has at winning a title. All right, so him not signing an extension with Minnesota makes sense to me. All right, go test free agency, see what the market's going to be offering you. And if you can get a good enough deal where you're signing with a contender who can win within the next few years a title, then you go do that. All right? And I know him and Kyrie Irving, them playing together has been something that's been talked about. And also maybe they team up and go to New York since they'll be free agents together. Or maybe Jimmy Butler finds a way to join them up in Boston. All right? Jimmy Butler and the Boston Celtics have been linked together before. All right. There was a point where I think the Bulls wanted Terry Rozier for Jimmy Butler. Obviously, they had a different, a trade package along with Rozier. But nonetheless, Boston wasn't willing to part ways with Rozier. All right. Boston standing pat has worked out well. So maybe they could eventually just end up with Jimmy Butler walking into their team. All right. Who knows? But like I said, he's got to go to a team where he's basically going to shape up the culture, or the culture's already there to where he's going to fit in instantly. All right. This NBA offseason's been interesting, I'll say the least. All right, you got Kyrie who's not signing an extension because he wants to make more money next year, and same with Jimmy Butler, but there might be more to the surface there. All right, so we'll see what ends up happening. Nonetheless, like I said, been a wacky NBA offseason. We got more to talk about next. We'll be talking about the Lakers. All right, we'll be talking about a couple other teams who are kind of affected with this whole Kawhi Leonard situation, where how the Raptors stack up against other teams. So stay tuned for that, but nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here, so I'll be back in the next segment, so stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We spent that last segment talking about Jimmy Butler. All right, not signing an extension with the Timberwolves this offseason. Going to be holding off on that and going to be waiting to see basically what is out there next season for him in free agency. Plus, he can make a whole lot more money that way. So, I mean, it makes no sense to sign an extension now. Just like it did with Kyrie Irving not signing an extension with the Celtics this offseason. All right, not that one was offered, but it would make no sense for Kyrie to sign an extension this offseason given the fact that he could make a whole lot more money next season if he signs one with Boston or whoever else he pleases. Okay. So there's that we talked about. And Jimmy Butler, like I said, he's one of those few players where basketball is life and death basically for him. All right, obviously there's more things to basketball, but nonetheless, we don't have too many of these guys out here who basically are just out here to win games, get better, and win championships. Okay, some of these other guys are playing ball now. It's a money thing or branding or anything like that. But Jimmy Butler's kind of like one of the few left in that kind of Kobe mentality. Okay. Kobe didn't care about any of that other stuff. It was just a matter of, you know what, I'm going to spend my time in the gym and get better. Okay, and I think that might be rubbing Jimmy Butler the wrong way because I don't think it's really the same way over there in Minnesota. Okay, so that's why I say he's got to go to San Antonio, Boston, or one of those basketball places where, I mean, all they do is play basketball and win titles. I mean, basically that's their MO. Okay, none of that outside noise. So we'll see what ends up happening there. We also did talk about Kawhi Leonard getting traded to the Toronto Raptors. All right, San Antonio was not able to get a deal done with any of the other big teams they were working with. And Toronto were the only team who was willing to give up an all-star type player. All right, so I guess the Spurs got what they wanted here. And the Toronto Raptors get what they want here also. Okay, but nonetheless, I mean, you got to say Magic Johnson, he did land LeBron James, but he did strike out on a few other players this free agency. Okay? Paul George was one who, I mean, it seemed like it was written in stone, set in stone that he was going to be going to the Lakers. Okay, it seemed that him and LeBron was the plan. Paul George never took a meeting with the Lakers, ended up just re-signing with OKC. Okay? And, I mean, Paul George, he's from near LA. All right? Favorite team was the Lakers, and it seemed like that was going to be the move, but for some reason, and I'm not sure why, but he just never took a meeting with the Lakers. Maybe it was just the point where he loved Oklahoma City that much, and there was no point in taking a meeting with the Lakers, but nonetheless, that's a player that the Lakers, I will say, struck out on. Okay, and then it seemed like the move was to get Kawhi Leonard. He wants to be in LA. Lakers go get him, but they weren't able to work out a deal there. That's not necessarily on Magic Johnson. I mean, from what I've seen, the Spurs were asking for way too much. Okay. I saw a deal of Ingram, Kuzma, and Josh Hart, along with 2 first-round picks for Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I figured that's how the negotiations were going to go. The Spurs really asking the Lakers for things they can't give up because, I mean, the Spurs and Lakers aren't relatively too good of friends or too close or anything like that. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, you only end up with LeBron, and I'd say as of right now, as far as where the Lakers stack up, I mean, they're probably the 4th best team in the West. Okay? Of course, you've got the Warriors being the best team there. Then I'd still say Houston holds that 2nd spot even after losing Ariza. All right, I'm sure they'll end up with Carmelo Anthony. I haven't been the biggest Carmelo Anthony fan, but I do think Melo in Houston, I mean, he's not going to be as good as he once was in New York or Denver, but nonetheless, he could do a good job there and could produce. All right, I think that offense does fit his style, meaning ISO and sit by the three-point line and you'll get a ball. Okay? I'd say right now that the Jazz are the 3rd best team in the West for me. Okay? And I really hope people don't sleep on the Jazz this season. I mean, last year we saw them become the 5 seed after losing Gordon Hayward and George Hill, 2 of their biggest players on offense the season before that. All right? Donovan Mitchell was a rookie leading that team in the playoffs. I mean, they won their first-round series against the Thunder. Okay? And, I mean, you figure that Donovan Mitchell's got to be even better in his 2nd season, and, I mean, the sky's the limit there. So I do think as of right now they're the 3rd best team in the West. I mean, Joe Ingles is a real solid player for them. You got Rubio. Okay. And then you also got Gobert, who is probably the best rim protector in all of basketball. All right, and then I think that's where the Lakers fit in at 4. I mean, of course, the Lakers still got to compete with the Timberwolves, who are going to be adding Jimmy Butler back, and I think I might be forgetting about them. All right, so I'd say right now, Lakers are probably the 4th or 5th best team in the West. Okay? And as far as they stack up with the whole NBA, I mean, I'd take the Celtics over them right now. And I'd say they're probably... I'd say maybe Philly and Toronto might be a little bit better than the Lakers right now as far as overall all-around teams. Okay? But nonetheless, I mean, the Lakers are going to be a playoff team this season. And it's just a point of how far do we expect them to go this season? Like, what's the expectations? Because I'm assuming with the guys they got right now, those are going to be the guys they got going forward. Of course, we're going to see a trade maybe here or there. But nonetheless, I don't think there's going to be anything too crazy. All right, so if we're adding the Lakers into the playoffs, all right, you got to take a team out. Which team do you take out? Rockets and Warriors are going to be playoff teams for sure. Same with Oklahoma City. Same with Utah. And I'd say same with Minnesota. So that just leaves San Antonio, New Orleans, and Portland. Okay. I'd say that the Lakers coming in probably pushes maybe New Orleans out. Okay. Because New Orleans, before DeMarcus Cousins got there, the playoffs weren't really a thing to be thought of. All right, Anthony Davis really didn't have any help. And I mean, this season they lose DeMarcus Cousins. You lose Rondo. Okay. I don't think the Pelicans relatively got better. You did add Julius Randle, but nonetheless, is that a guy who's going to help you get to the playoffs, or is that just another nice role player? Okay. I mean, the Nuggets got much better this season. I'm sure they're going to be a playoff team this year. Maybe you see San Antonio and the Pelicans falling out. But I mean, there's the 8 teams that made playoffs last year. The Nuggets, the Lakers, and the Mavericks, I'd say, as teams who could be fighting for playoff spots this season. Okay, the West is going to be very crowded, and it's going to be one where, I mean, some teams deserve to get in, but don't. All right? I mean, last year the Nuggets won 46 games, and they couldn't even get in that way. All right? 46 games makes you the 6th seed out east. All right, and pushes Washington out. But nonetheless, I mean, as far as the Lakers go, all right, it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a longer process than some expect for them to get to the point where they want to be. All right, and I think Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka realize that too, and I think that's their plan. Because, I mean, if their idea was to win now, then this is a completely failed offseason. Okay, if you were expecting to challenge the Warriors this season and that was the goal, then yeah, you failed big time and you struck out on a lot of the players you probably wanted to get. All right, but if the goal is to basically, I guess, wait the Warriors out and wait till they're vulnerable enough to overthrow, then I'd say the beginning of the plan is, how do you say, on a good start. Okay? You already got the guy you're going to build around. Plus, you got Ingram, Kuzma, who, I mean, they develop their games, could become real good players in this NBA. All right, Lonzo Ball, he needs a jump shot. I mean, he's been working out all summer long, but, I mean, as far as players working out in the summer, I don't really put too much stock into it because, I mean, who isn't working out during the summer if you're an NBA player? Okay, plus jump shots don't tend to get fixed within a season, and looking at Lonzo's numbers, even if he were to make a decent-sized jump from his numbers last year, going up to this year, it's not going to be great. I mean, the dude was shooting 54% from the free throw line. Okay? A huge jump would be him like shooting 20% more. That would only get him to about 74%. Actually, I guess that'd be decent, actually, right there. All right, so if he jumps 24% as far as his free throw percentage, that's going to be a big help. I mean, shooting the ball, he was shooting around 33% from the field. Usually you only see guys raise theirs by about 4 or 5%. I mean, he gets to 38. That's a little below average, so I guess that's a plus there. So he's not that far off, but more so I don't think it's something you fix up in one off season. Okay. But nonetheless, I mean, there's going to be a lot of good free agents next season. Talking about Jimmy Butler. All right, Kawhi Leonard's going to be a free agent. Maybe you end up with him finally. But nonetheless, I mean, these Lakers, all right, their goal has been to be signing a bunch of all-star free agents, okay? They've struck out year after year. The only one they finally hit on was LeBron James. And I'd say as of right now, I mean, LeBron James is their best free agency signing since Shaquille O'Neal went there, left Orlando and went there. All right? So it's going to be really interesting to see how the rest of this rebuild goes. But nonetheless, I mean, you got 4 years with LeBron. After that, he could go somewhere else. All right? And I'm sure the goal here is to win championships. With the team they got, that's not happening this season. Okay? So we'll see what big moves they got up their sleeve going forward. But nonetheless, I mean, the Kawhi Leonard one does kind of put a little damper in their little process because, I mean, it seemed like their goal was to end up with LeBron and one of the two, Kawhi or Paul George. But, of course, I mean, when the Spurs aren't necessarily negotiating in good terms with you or anything like that, you don't really have a shot. And, I mean, Paul George obviously didn't even take a meeting with the Lakers, so it's even tough there. Okay? But I wouldn't be surprised, too, if Kawhi ends up ending up with the Clippers next season. All right? Kawhi didn't say he wants to go to the Lakers. It's always been reported Kawhi wants to be in LA. There's 2 LA teams. All right? So we'll see how it all what ends up happening. But nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about anything else going on in the world of basketball. So stay tuned for that, and I will be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Today we spent the show talking about Kawhi Leonard going to the Raptors. That's a real big risky move for the Raptors there. I mean, you only have Kawhi guaranteed for 1 season. After that, he could just end up leaving, and after that, your franchise is just back in the dumpster. Okay, talked about Jimmy Butler not signing a long-term deal with the Timberwolves this offseason. It'd make no sense for him to. He can make a whole lot more money next season, and even then so, I mean, it doesn't seem like he really wants to be in Minnesota, given all the reports that have been coming out. Okay, third segment we talked about the Lakers. Okay, I mean, it seemed like they were supposed to be getting Paul George. That never happened. They never got a meeting with him. And it seemed like Kawhi Leonard was the next man up, and that never happened. Okay, basically talked about if their plan was to win this year, I mean, they completely struck out, but if they're thinking of doing something more long-term, then I guess this is the beginning of a decent plan, I'd say. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, now we talk about anything else going on in the world of basketball. And the Celtics, all right. Looks like they're going to be nearing a deal with Marcus Smart. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted today, I believe it was, that the Celtics were working on a deal where basically the Celtics would be giving Marcus Smart a 4-year extension worth about $46 to $50 million. All right, so basically a 4-year, maybe about 12 to $14 million deal, something within that range. All right, probably 12, 13 type of thing. Okay. And, I mean, I think that's fair value for Marcus Smart. People will look at it and see, oh, he's making 12 mil a year or whatever, but in reality, 12 mil now is not what it was once before. All right, 12 mil now is basically what you do pay for a role player. Okay, and I mean, as far as the Celtics and Marcus Smart go, he is the heart and soul of that team. All right, I remember watching them in the playoffs without him for the first couple of games. I mean, that team was missing something. They just seemed dead. Okay, Marcus Smart comes back, and it's night and day from how they played without him to how they play with him. The guy's always going to be one where coming off the bench doesn't matter to him, but he's going to be diving for all the loose balls. And he's also a guy who can make the clutch play. Okay? Even though he's not part of the starting 5, you will see him a lot playing those crunch time minutes, all right, with the time ticking down and all that, because he knows he has the right instincts, okay? He knows what play to make, he knows how to make it, and he knows, I mean, what's going to come up big. I mean, even with shots, for some reason, I mean, Marcus Smart doesn't relatively shoot the ball well, but nonetheless, when you need a big shot at the end of the game, more times than not, I've seen Marcus Smart hit it. Okay, it makes no sense whatsoever, but nonetheless, the guy just has a knack for the big time. Okay, and I think the Celtics, if they were to lose Marcus Smart, I mean, I saw that his agent was talking with Brooklyn, there was talks with the Kings. I mean, if they were to lose him there, then, I mean, that'd be a big loss for the Celtics. Okay? And I just think Marcus Smart and the Celtics are perfect for each other. I mean, Marcus Smart basically is Boston Celtics basketball if you've paid attention to him. Most fans around the league, I think, tend to take a disliking to him because he does flop a lot, and he does flop a lot, but nonetheless, I mean, he's kind of a guy, if you had him on your team, you'd love him. If he wasn't on your team, you'd hate him. Okay? So I think that's just what it is with Marcus Smart and fans in the NBA. But nonetheless, I mean, if they do end up extending him, that is a big part of their offseason right there. All right. And I mean, we got to see with Boston what's going to end up happening with Terry Rozier this season. All right, him and Danny Ainge seem to have like a best friend type relationship, but Danny Ainge has been known to, it doesn't matter what your relationship is with him, he will trade you. Okay? And I'm curious, I mean, of course the Celtics and Terry Rozier, I'm sure, are going to try to work out a deal, but Terry Rozier's probably got to see that, you know what, I could start for about half these teams in the league and be a productive starter. Do I want to stay here and maybe work to something big with Boston where we're competing for championships? Or do you want to go out, get paid a lot of money, and become a starting point guard in the NBA where maybe your winning situation isn't going to be as good as Boston's? Okay, because I think if Boston ends up losing Terry Rozier, they're still up there as far as contenders. All right. But of course, with him there, I mean, it enhances their chances even more. So that's going to be one to watch out for too. I mean, Boston's got to come up with a decision. Okay? Because, I mean, Terry Rozier is going to be a free agent after this upcoming season, and so will Kyrie Irving. You can't afford to lose both of them. That's a fact. Okay, if Kyrie Irving decides, you know what, Boston, you were great, all that stuff I said about you is true, but I want to go somewhere else, then Terry Rozier's got to be the first priority for the Celtics unless there's some other better point guard out there, which I'm not even sure. All right, Terry Rozier has shown that he can compete in the playoffs and be a big factor for this team, so that just might be one where Boston could stick with him. Okay? And I mean, obviously going from Kyrie to Terry Rozier would be a big downgrade, but nonetheless, I mean, we saw Boston go to the Eastern Conference Finals with Terry being the starting point guard this season, so it is a point where they can go far with him. All right? That's all the possibility. Plus, you got Gordon Hayward locked up long term. Jason Tatum, I don't think he's ever going to be leaving Boston. Okay? Jaylen Brown, I mean, I'm sure the Celtics would like him to stay there forever. And Al Horford seems like he could just be finishing up his career there. All right? So we'll see what ends up happening. But nonetheless, Boston bringing back Marcus Smart, if that does end up happening, is a big move for that team. Okay. And now, I mean, we can move on talking about Carmelo Anthony. All right. I figured that the Thunder were just going to be buying him out, but it seems like there is interest around the league for Carmelo Anthony, whether to get rid of players who you don't need or whether or not you just need to eat up cap, so you bring him on and you buy him out. All right. Another trade scenario I've seen as far as that goes with the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Hawks are looking to get rid of Dennis Schroeder. Okay, they recently signed Jeremy Lin, so I'm assuming they're going to go with the starting point guard being Trae Young and Jeremy Lin coming off the bench, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter, but nonetheless, that pretty much makes Dennis Schroeder a player you don't need. All right, and Dennis Schroeder doesn't necessarily want to be in Atlanta anymore, so there's a deal on the table where you could be seeing Dennis Schroeder going to the Thunder and Melo going over to the Hawks, I'm sure with possibly a first-round or second-round pick. I think it was a second-round pick that I saw. And then the Hawks could just buy him out. All right, chances are whatever team Melo gets traded to, he's going to be getting bought out. And like I said, I'm still pretty much on the side of I'm sure Melo's going to end up in Houston one way or another. All right, but at least with this deal, I mean, this is the deal that's made most sense to me so far. Okay? The Thunder end up getting a very good backup point guard for Russell Westbrook, and even a guy that you can probably play with Russell Westbrook if need be. All right, Dennis Schroeder, he's rarely talked about, but nonetheless is a very good point guard, and I'd say could start for about half the teams in the league. Okay, as looked down upon as he is for some reason, he does have game, and he is a very good player. All right, and I think Thunder would be a perfect fit for him. He could run it with that second unit, and even then, so like I said, he could play crunch time with that team if he needs to. Okay, we've seen Dennis Schroeder show up in the playoffs for the Hawks and play extremely well. He basically got Jeff Teague up out of there because he played so well enough, Atlanta wanted him to be the starting point guard going forward. All right, Atlanta wasn't supposed to be as bad as they are now. Something went wrong with that team, and it was probably losing Horford and getting rid of all those other guys, but nonetheless, I mean, they were supposed to be a decent team as of right now with Dennis Schroeder. I just think it was a point where their plan just didn't end up working, and everything just started going every other way. All right. So, I mean, I'd like to. Like I said, that's the deal that's made more sense to me than any of the others. I've seen Melo being linked to Brooklyn as far as Brooklyn trading for him and buying him out that way. But nonetheless, I mean, I think this deal makes the most sense for Atlanta. You get to eat up some cap space, and you get to get rid of Schroeder where you don't need him. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, there's no real other NBA news going on right now. I guess Carmelo Anthony is the next big-name player to be on the move. Now it's just a matter of we got to wait and see what ends up happening with him. All right. And I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to get done anytime soon because, I mean, like I said, the Thunder are in no rush. They know Melo's not going to be on their team this season. It's just a matter of waiting out till you get the best deal possible. All right, so we'll see. I mean, next week I'm sure we're going to have a whole lot more to talk about because, of course, the NBA offseason always does. Something's always happening over in the NBA during the offseason. So we're going to actually wrap it up here. Today we talked about Kawhi Leonard going to the Raptors. I mean, a crazy move there. DeMar DeRozan is now a San Antonio Spur. Second segment, we talked about Jimmy Butler not wanting to sign an extension with the Timberwolves this offseason. He has the opportunity of making a whole lot more money next season. And plus, I mean, he could just end up testing the waters and leaving in a free agency. All right, third segment, we talked about the Lakers. And then this segment, we talked about the Celtics nearing an extension with Marcus Smart. And we talked about the idea of the Hawks sending over Dennis Schroeder to the Thunder for Carmelo Anthony and possibly a second-round pick. They'd be buying out Anthony, but nonetheless, they get that second-round pick. So we'll see what ends up happening. But either way, we're going to wrap it up here, like I said. Thanks for listening to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back next Wednesday, so stay tuned, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.